There's a few songs there that are under par. It needs a bit more work, a bit more polished. But I think Van Morrison's life at this point was in some flux. You know, he was about to move to California. You know, the marriage was a little bit wobbly. You know, I think there might have been a kid on the way at this point. And he clearly lacked focus.
Having relocated to California in early 1971, Morrison began shaping material for a new record in collaboration with Doobie Brothers producer Ted Templeman. His focus again returned to broadening his range, with a sound that belonged more in the province of country and western than that of rhythm and blues. The resulting album, Tupelo Honey, appeared in October '71, accompanied by another successful single in Wild Night.
And you comb your hair, I'll grab your collar out. And you walk the West Streets try to remember all the wild night breezes in your memory.
Wild Night is, I think, Van's effort to show that he can write a sort of classic four-to-the-floor Tamla Motown hit song. Indeed, Martha Reeves covered it quite fabulously. It's one of those songs in the tradition of Brown Eyed Girl, I suppose, in that you know, it just gives you a rush every time you hear it.
The wild night calling. The wild night calling. Come on out there. Come on out of big romance. Come on out there. Come on out of big romance.
Well, Tupelo Honey was a departure of sorts. In a sense, it was a more country album, which might sound predictable in a sense, because don't forget, this was the age of country rock. Country rock was in the ascendant. Suddenly, the pedal steel guitar was almost as important as the lead guitar in the rock world. And what was different about Tupelo Honey, though, was that in some ways it played to Morrison's old strengths. He wasn't a neophyte as far as country was concerned. A lot of people doing country had come from strict country, you know, bluegrass backgrounds or whatever, that did it well. Others were opportunists who saw country rock as a way of, you know, getting back to the roots, but they weren't genuinely interested in it. They were basically rock musicians playing around with country. I think Morrison had more credibility because he did have the background in country blues. I mean, he was a man who had listened to everybody from Hank Williams downwards as a kid.
I think he's always been influenced by all those kind of forms of primitive American music. You know, he's always influenced by country, always influenced by blues, always influenced by jazz, always influenced by gospel. And I think they, you know, the proportions might change, but I think those are always the things that are kind of influencing him.
She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. She's an angel of the first degree. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. Just like pretty baby from the bay.
The title track of Tupelo Honey is, you know, perhaps the ultimate expression of contentment and domestic bliss. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. She's an angel. You know, simple sentiments, beautifully expressed.
Well, you know, she's all right.
She's an angel.
She's all right.
She's an angel. She's an angel.
She's all right with me.
She's an angel.
Well, you know, she's all right.
She's an angel.
There's a tremendous roundedness to the sound. There's a completeness of form. There's a sonority of all the elements coming together. Ted Templeman's production values probably have quite a lot to do with the success of the record. He's got great musicians playing with him. I mean, he's completely gels with these American guys that he's playing with.
As with Moondance, as with Street Choir, as with Tupelo Honey, what was becoming really, really obvious was that Van Morrison didn't sound like anyone else. You know, no one could actually put a name on this. And it's kind of, he so clearly wasn't a rock star, you know. I mean, no one could be further removed from the Jim Morrisons or the Iggy Pops of the world, or even the David Bowies of the world. You know, he was a guy who clearly had no truck with the kind of, the self-invention that went on in pop music at that time, you know, were kind of, you know, everyone had their little gimmicks, you know, and let's not forget, you know, this is kind of, we're just gearing up to the time of glam rock almost, where things were getting very glittery, you know, and Van's, it's almost like a reaction to all that stuff which was burgeoning, was to say, well, you know, here's me and here's my ranch which I don't even own, and there's this picture of kind of domestic tranquility. And what came out of it, it's an impossible record not to love. It's just kind of, it's a really hard record not to fall in love with, because there's an enormous sense of yearning, a kind of yearning to be, maybe for a happiness which was kind of only really in his imagination.
Though Tupelo Honey had cemented Morrison's commercial viability with a top 30 showing in the charts, the singer began 1972 in a more introspective mood. With his marriage to Janet Planet Rigsby foundering and Ulster's Bloody Sunday igniting a wave of violence across his home country, Morrison's songwriting moved away from the Americana that had conquered the charts and returned to the personal territory of his earlier work. The resulting album, St. Dominic's Preview, arrived in July '72 and, for many commentators, demonstrated that Morrison had matured into a multifaceted artist at the very peak of his game.
Well, St. Dominic's Preview was a great record because it played to Morrison's strength, and I think what he did was, it was a distillation of seemingly all his strengths on one album. So almost as if it wasn't a compilation album, but it was as if Morrison had decided, you know, he plucked things from every aspect of his career and put them on one record. You know, there's a bit of country in there, there's the gypsy element that was in earlier parts of his music, there's the improvisation elements of Astral Weeks, the improvisation, the lengthy narrative songs that people love from Astral Weeks, the mystery and the vocal pyrotechnics, they're there. But there's also the punchy R&B of Moondance, courtesy of Jackie Wilson said, one of his most famous songs. And what a great song. I mean, it's one of his punchiest R&B songs ever. It was a perfect radio song.
Jackie Wilson said it was written to kind of love you got, knock me off my feet, let it all hang. Oh, let it all hang. Yeah, you know, I'm so wired up, don't need no coffee in my cup. Let it all hang out. Let it all hang out. Watch this.
The completeness of St. Dominic's is put into context by the title track itself, which is an autobiographical travelogue where he writes his own personal vision or interpretation of that most American of forms, the picaresque ballad, where you cover an entire landmass in a song. Only in Van's case, of course, it stretches back to Belfast. So the people who were thinking that he had in some way deserted Belfast will be pulled back when they hear St. Dominic's, because you've got a very distinctive and actual vision of a possibility for reconciliation in a country which is now a very deep, dark, dangerous place.
Buffalo. It's a long way to Belfast City too. And I'm hoping that Joyce won't blow the hoist, 'cause this time they bit off more than they can chew.
There's a real sense of kind of, you know, where is my home? What is my home? What is home? What is home about? And that particularly comes through on the title track. It's just this sense of kind of missing island.